The push for EVs and net zero by 2050 isn't based in reality or practicality, it's based in fantasy and ideology. It's driven by climate hysteria pumped out by discredited organisations like the United Nations and the IPCC that say the planet will end if we don't act now. And it's precisely because of this activist-fuelled extremist ideology that we're being forced down the path of net zero and electrification. A bad policy driven by bad science and misplaced environmental panic. The problem is that none of these aims has any basis in reality. There is no way the planet will achieve net zero by 2050 or anywhere close. Maybe not even by 2100. Maybe not even for centuries more. And the enormous financial and economic burdens this ideology is imposing on nations and individuals are being felt more and more. And finally, I believe the tide is beginning to turn. Welcome back to MGUY, British engineer and lawyer, now Sydney-based YouTuber. Be sure to follow me on the usual socials for more content, links in the description. And please make sure you're subscribed, doesn't cost you anything, and have enabled all notifications so you don't miss out on any future videos. You know, I sometimes think of all the great things humanity could do if it weren't pathologically obsessed with trying to change the climate. All those trillions of dollars wasted on tackling climate change could go to making a world which is tangibly better for everyone today, right now, rather than trying to avert some theoretical, highly speculative future scenario that will probably never happen. As humans with a relatively short lifespan, we have no concept of geological time, time on a scale of tens or hundreds of thousands or even millions of years. To expect the climate to be just right all the time is an incredibly ignorant and short-sighted view. We're lucky that human civilization has flourished entirely within a fairly warm interglacial period right now. It's called interglacial because the default position is glacial. Eventually, as sure as night follows day, the planet will enter a new ice age, and no amount of taxes or wealth redistribution by governments will stop that. As a species, we will have to adapt, and that's the end of it. A bit of extra carbon dioxide in the atmosphere not only helps us grow more crops than ever before, but also might put off that ice age a little bit longer. Perhaps in a few thousand years the UN and IPCC, if they still exist, will be paying us to burn fossil fuels to warm the planet up. It sounds funny, but it makes about as much sense as the climate modification we're trying to implement right now. And all of this drives the net zero and EV madness. North America should reconsider its electric vehicle obsession. The pursuit of widespread EV adoption driven by ambitious environmental goals neglects critical economic, technological and strategic considerations. North America's integrated auto sector is in the midst of a significant transformation driven by the United States and Canada's ambitious climate goals. Their decision to go all in on electric vehicles, EVs, risks triggering one of the most significant economic policy blunders since the Great Depression. The US and Canadian governments have collectively committed over $200 billion in subsidies towards EV battery production, vehicle assembly and related facilities. The required new power generation and grid infrastructure upgrades for the US could add another $53 to $127 billion to the total cost of transition to EVs by 2030. Governments will likely need to foot some of that bill too. While this unprecedented investment demonstrates a commitment to reducing greenhouse gas GHG emissions, it also represents a grave strategic miscalculation. By prioritising EVs over other technologies, the governments have put climate goals at odds with domestic auto sector and national security concerns about Chinese EV imports. This heavy-handed intervention in the auto sector undermines the industry's competitive advantages and stifles innovation in other technologies. Forecasts indicate that Western governments will have insufficient supplies of critical minerals needed for widespread EV adoption. Supplies of lithium, cobalt, copper and nickel essential for EV and battery production are expected to be insufficient to meet demand over the next 10 to 20 years. Long lead times to permit and build sufficient critical mineral mines and processing facilities could severely limit EV production. Studies also suggest that consumers are sensitive to high EV prices, as evidenced by the increase in sales when government incentives are available. It's a great article. Read the rest at the link in the description. All of this is a result of bad policy driven by bad science, driven by environmental extremism. It will end in tears, that's for sure. Everyone will end up poorer as a result. But unfortunately, as we all know too well, net zero zealotry trumps everything else.